Now, TRA Marketplace, I came here last year, and a robot made me a drink, and it was like the best day of my life. I feel sure that that is happening again this year, and I know that we are at TRA Marketplace to buy cool stuff, see cool stuff. We're also here to learn a bunch of stuff, which is what this session is about. We're also here to have fun. So the first thing that we are going to do is hand you a cocktail if you would like one. We've got Rick Lang from Zing Zang. Yes, it rhymes, not on purpose. It's just awesome. And he is going to make us a couple of beverages, and then we're going to pass them out. So let me get up on stage, and he's going to tell us all about it.
Perfect.
All right. What are we making today?
Is this on?
Is it on?
Yes, I'm on. Great. So I got a couple cocktails today.
Well, that's okay. I'll stand over
we'll
here.
Stay with the distance.
No, you need to be in front of the booth. Okay.
So Zing Zang's known for Bloody Mary mix. We're the #1 Bloody Mary mix in Texas and the U.S. Ad brand's absolutely on fire, but we're diversifying and expanding. So the first drink we have is an all-natural pina colada made with real coconut, real pineapple juice, all-natural sugar. It also includes all-natural stevia, which is important because it's lower calories than the high fructose corn syrup mixers that are out there today. All right.
I feel like everybody, I don't know, raise your hands if you need a beach vacation like right now. Yes, I know. Every time I have a pina colada, it can be after a hard day or an average Tuesday. I typically find a way, is that me? You guys tell me if I'm screwing this up. I always feel like a pina colada transports me right to the beach, but without like the sand and uncomfortable places that we're not actually going to talk about right now. But this pina colada I'm super excited about because we can all feel like we've got our toes in the sand while we're engaging our brains, which isn't typically something we do on a beach. And I'm going to go ahead and wear this little thing just to remind you that we are here on a Polynesian island called TRA Marketplace, and it's going to be delightful. So is there anything else we need to add about this concoction?
Pina colada's ready to go.
All right, sweet. So he's going to pour these, and we're going to kick this bad boy off with Mr. Jacob Monty.
Well, with the news I have for you on the immigration front, you really need to start drinking, folks, because it's not generally good news. But I think the theme is don't freak out because there is a solution. What am I referring to specifically? It's the no match problem. Who's heard of that?
Are these done?
Yes, ma'am.
Did I give you enough space?
No matches
we're
were gone for 12 years, but they reemerged in February. And there's a lot of bad advice out there, frankly, and it's conflicting advice. Some employers are being told, ignore it. Don't even find out who's implicated by the no match. We call that the stick your head in the sand approach. It's not wise because, yes, the Social Security Administration can't fine you, but their cousin, the IRS, can fine you for intentionally submitting information you know is wrong. So taking that stick your head in the sand approach is not the way to go. But on the other end of the spectrum, there's the Chicken Little approach, which is, oh my God, I have to terminate everyone implicated by the no match. We helped an employer in Dallas recently, and they were looking at 100 current employees that were implicated by the no match. These were people that had seniority, and they had heard that they had to terminate them. You don't have to terminate people implicated by the no match. But you do have to find out who's implicated by the no match, and you do have to raise the no match with them. And you do that via letter. The question I get is, well, can you just do it in writing, orally? You can, but there's no proof of it. But you have to raise the issue, but you don't have to do anything after that. If you do that, you've met what the IRS calls the solicitation requirement. You ask them, hey, is this really your number? If so, you might need to look at it because it's showing up as a no match. If you do that, you've met your obligation. And folks, I have the no match guide. It's in this folder. Anyone who wants one, we have some. If we run out, we'll be happy to send it to you. But included in there is the letter where you can give to your employees, telling them about the no match and telling them to correct it if possible.
Perfect.
But that's vital. We call this approach the middle of the road approach, the Goldilocks approach. It's the just right approach. Again, it's the middle of the road in between the two extremes, which are ignore it or terminate everyone implicated by the no match. Now, there is good news for us because the Social Security Administration on June 3rd of this year actually came out with a response to Representative Costa, and in it, they specifically tell employers, don't terminate employees implicated by the no match. So that's good, finally some good news from Washington. So again, so we have that letter from the Social Security Administration that supports your position, but you have to raise this issue with the employee, and you want to just hand out the notice with your paychecks. Folks, remember, we're essentially in the don't ask, don't tell scenario when it comes to immigration and workers, right? Who remembers don't ask, don't tell from the 90s? So just to recap, as long as you don't know definitively that someone is undocumented, keep employing them. If they have an I-9, you're fine. Now, if you know that they're undocumented because they told you they're undocumented, I'm sorry, it's too late. You already have knowledge that they're undocumented. That's why you all as owners and HR people and general managers, you need to have a canned speech ready. Jose, I'm here for you, buddy, but if you tell me something different than your I-9, I'm going to have to act on it. And don't call me anymore asking me to fix people. It's impossible. Folks, this is the only problem in America that money doesn't solve. If you're fat, you can get operated on. If you're ugly, you can get operated on. If you're undocumented and you entered without inspection, it's not fixable. Every week we get a call saying, you know, Jacob, we have this great superintendent. He's earning $90,000 a year. Please help me fix his papers. It's usually the answer is nothing. And then the bad news is now you know. Now you can't take advantage of that don't ask, don't tell presumption. So remember, we want to not learn too much about our employees because once you learn, you can't unlearn. I got to talk about I-9s because I-9s continue to cause problems for employers. We have the handy guide to the I-9. By the way, folks, it's a 2-page document now. Employers are routinely messing this up. ICE raids are on the uptick. Recently, we had a case, it was actually a restaurant, where the fines are looking like about $200,000, and it's just because the forms weren't completed right. So there's no excuse for that. You all can go and do a self-audit, or you can hire a third party to come in and audit. Again, we would only audit to make sure the I-9s are completed properly. The last thing, if ICE shows up, it's because someone called them. So your number didn't just turn up, it's because somebody turned you in. Who could turn you in? A former employee, a current employee, a neighbor. We had a case recently where it was a construction company. The neighbor was upset at all the beer cans being thrown out after payday, and she called immigration. She kept calling immigration. The other thing I want to mention is innocent bystander victims of identity theft. This is actually more dangerous than the no-match issue, and it deals with the scenario where someone calls and says, look, I'm from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I've never been to Corpus Christi. You all are reporting revenue to my social. Please stop it. Recently, we had a case where we ended up with a full-blown ICE investigation because this lady was ignored for 8 months. So finally, her congressman got ICE involved, and we ended up with a full-blown it was an
How many more
audit
do you think you need?
because no one got back to this person.
Okay.
If that happens to you, it's real simple.
Sure.
Investigate, interview the employee. If he admits that it's not his social, you're going to have to terminate him. But that's better than having ICE at your doorstep. So again, focus on the I-9.
Okay.
Focus on the innocent bystander protocol, and we have copies of that here. The other thing I wanted to mention is citizenship. Folks, there are a lot of your people that are eligible for citizenship, permanent residents, but they can't take the exam in Spanish. They have to take it in English. So we have prepared a guide to help them with these civics questions in Spanish. And we have a special program right now to encourage people to take the exam, and this guide is also available because when they become citizens, it'll help them for voting. It'll also give them more permanence in this country, and it'll prevent the problem that some of you all have already had where your top guy gets caught with a multiple DWI scenario and is facing deportation. So if they're a citizen, they're not going to be eligible for deportation anymore. So that's the other reason to consider this. I will stick around and answer any immigration-related questions. Essentially, not a lot of good news. I guess one bit of good news is the hoopla about the raids was maybe a little bit overblown. They do raids all the time, folks. They're always going after people. I think the media and the president made a lot of this stuff up, but if there's an outstanding deportation for you, they're going to come for you. The question is there collateral arrests also? So if people run when immigration comes in looking for one person, they will chase the other people who ran also. So cool. Another good reason not to lose your head. All right, that's what I got. And again, I'll stick around and hand out any of these no-match packets. Thank you all.
Whoop, whoop. Yes. Okay, well, I am channeling the one summer that I was a cocktail waitress. Spoiler alert, I was really bad at it. I would just be chatting, and they were like, are you going to bring us our drink? And I'm like, no, what? I thought we were just hanging out. If anybody wants, I know I could not get to the middle because I don't want to be like that person in the line of sight the whole time. Who missed a pina colada that wants one? All right, girls, I appreciate it. Yes, ladies. And the only way that I was able to find the Panhandle Theater is because I asked no offense, dudes, but like a whole booth of dudes, and they were like, what? I have no idea what you were talking about. And the one lady from the back was like, oh, it's in the corner, sweetie. And I was like, yes, thank you. Women are really showing up for me today. I have 2 more. Oh, excellent, sir. I have a gentleman taker. All right, so while we do this, oh, and another lady taker. All right, I see you too. I see you too, honey. All right, so while I hand these last 2 out, we are going to kick it back to Mr. Lang with Zing Zing to tell us about his margarita.
So, like I mentioned, #1 Bloody Mary mix in Texas. We now have the #1 margarita in terms of growth. This is 1 year into launch. It's an all-natural agave margarita, so it's like a fresh margarita you can make at home. It's real lime juice, key lime juice, grapefruit juice, and agave nectar, right? So it's what you can do at home, but it's ready to go in a bottle, and all you have to do is add the tequila, and that's what we're about to do.
But what's your preferred tequila? Tell us everything about it. Oh, sorry.
So I think any 100% blue agave tequila is the way to go. Your traditional margarita is made with the Blanco tequila, so that's what we have here. Go with what works. There's plenty of tequilas on the market that are growing fast, but Cuervo Tradicional, Cuervo invented the margarita. Stick with the 100% blue agave, you'll be fine.
Awesome. Oh my goodness. Also a drink that I always need. Also, pro tip, if anyone does take
I'll tell you, it's a really, really hard movie to get a clip from because there's a lot of swearing, so I had to cut it off there, but you get the idea.
These are done.
So yes, women can sexually harass men. That is a really good example. So the effects, I'm not a slide reader, but you can read the slide yourselves. But basically, you can lose the farm. If you are, not only if you are convicted or if you are found guilty of harassment, if you go to trial, but even the negative publicity we all know. In fact, right before this started, I was talking to a colleague about Kevin Spacey, who, as we know, was accused of fondling boys. His career is ruined no matter what happens in the trials, if he gets there. We all know that.
Yeah, badly.
Let's see. How am I putting this? You've seen the headlines, so I don't need to tell you that it's career wrecking. We've seen many chefs who have gone down. They've lost their businesses. They've lost investors. These are actual headlines pulled from the news about people you may know. Long-awaited restaurant Eunice wants distance from its problematic owner, for example. And like I said, I'm sure most of you are familiar with these folks. So let's talk about who can harass basically almost anybody. Your chefs, your owners, your managers, your supervisors, your employees, your contractors, anybody who walks into your restaurant can be a harasser. So you need to know that, and you need to be prepared for handling it when it comes up. I'm not sure where I should point this. What? All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about 7 best practices. I could tell you about all kinds of case law, but that would probably bore you, and I want to give you some practical advice. So I'm going to do it in pictures. Practical advice number 1. If you can, conduct background checks on employees you're going to hire. And if not, at a minimum, check their references. See what you can get from people when you call. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, they're not going to give me any information. They're not going to tell me anything I want to know. But if you do a background check, you may learn something. You may learn that somebody's got some kind of felony record or some kind of record. So if you can, do that. My advice to you is if you do, follow the Fair Credit Reporting Act if you use a third-party company to do your background checks. If you don't know what that is, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, see me after this presentation because you need to know. All right, number 2, if you have a big enough organization, conduct a pay audit. And yes, you can keep it confidential, you can keep it attorney-client privileged, but it will tell you, give you a nice snapshot of whether or not you have a problem. And basically what a pay audit is you get somebody who's really good at numbers, who walks around, does an analysis, looks at statistics, and tells you if you've got a lot more men making a lot more money than a lot more women. And it goes for minorities too. So you can do it by gender, you can do it by race. For those of you with 100 or more employees, anybody here qualify there? Okay, so if you don't know, a federal court just recently, within the last week, said that EEO-1 pay data, Section 2, Part 2, you're going to have to comply with that by September 1st. And if you don't know what that is, see me afterwards, because you're going to have to provide additional data. That's going to go to gender, and there are 12 new categories that you're going to have to fill out. And by the way, today is not only Prime Day, Amazon Prime Day, right? Yay! I know you're not going to be shopping because I know what you're going to be doing is going to the website because it opens today, the government website, to put that data in. And I know everybody's excited about that. I am. So it opens today.
I wasn't here, so that came
All right, number 4. Does that look familiar? Handbook? Dust it off. Get it out of the cabinet. Update it. So if you have policies that say things like, you cannot share your salary information with your co-employees, you better take it out. If you have a policy that says something like, you can't take photographs in my restaurant, take it out. It's a problem. If you have something that says, let's see, you have to act in a manner that does not tarnish the reputation of the company and does not reflect negatively on our company, that's a problem. If you have a policy that says you cannot use our computer information or our computer systems to do your own personal work, so don't be using my computer to send out emails of a personal nature, that could be a problem. Take a look at it, have it reviewed.
I have different
Most
stuff. I
important
can run
thing,
and grab
why?
it.
Anybody? Bueller? Because handbooks can be used as a defense to a number of things. You can show you have a policy. So when somebody harasses someone, you can say, I have a policy. It says don't do that. And they signed off on it. That's a good thing. So do that. It's not expensive. That's low-hanging fruit. What else? Training. I know nobody ever likes to do this, right? Nobody enjoys training. Try to roll it out when you have onboarding, if you can. Remember that when you do training, you need to pay your employees for it. So if you do it online or you say to them, log in after hours and take my training, if it's mandatory, you must pay them. So don't roll it out and expect them to take it and don't pay them. That's a problem under the Fair Labor Standards Act, so let's not do that. All right, discipline. When someone violates your policies, you need to be consistent in your discipline. We don't play favorites. What happens when we play favorites? Problems, right? Well, you didn't discipline that guy over 40, and I'm over 40 and I'm a woman and I got disciplined for the same thing. That doesn't sound fair. You just create problems where there don't need to be any. So don't do that. And make sure that you've got an HR department that is consistent. Talk to them. Make a historical record in your documents so you know if the problem recurs, you know how to handle it. And you're consistent in what you do. Also, I have added this recently. Keep an eye on social media. Know what people are saying about you. If you haven't been to Glassdoor recently at one of those sites and looked at what your reviews say, take a look. Because a lot of times you'll see people posting and saying, there's a really bad supervisor there. There's somebody who's acting inappropriately. And if you see it there, you should address it. Just because it's on a social media site does not mean you should ignore it. That's important. It's very important to know what's out there and to address it if you see it. Okay, this is what you should not do unless you are clam digging or looking for treasures. And I think he said the same thing. Don't stick your head in the sand. You need to address these things or you run the risk of losing the farm, as we've talked about. All right, let's see.
Hey.
So this is where I leave you.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I just want to tell you both, good luck. We're all counting on you.
Just want to tell you all good luck. We're counting on you. And if you need help, call your friendly neighborhood lawyer and ask.
I'm going to talk about booze because we're serving it and we're drinking it, and now you're all about to drive home, and that
Perfect.
sounds responsible
Alright.
to me. So be careful out
Did y'all
there.
find her?
It's tough. It's Houston, and there's
Okay,
traffic.
good.
It's a Monday. So we are. That's me. Let's talk about alcohol. That's what we got. Everybody's got it in their hand. We love it. We make a lot of money selling it. So I would like to know by show of
All right.
hands
Thank
how many
you.
of you sell alcohol in your
That's fun.
restaurants?
Do you want me to like do
That's
some
a
kind of
lot.
raffle or some shit? for
That'd
If
be
you
great.
don't and you aspire to, this is still applicable.
maybe I'll give one to each of the
How many of you have more than one point of service or
yeah,
sale?
I've got plenty of bottles. Yeah.
So
I'll go grab
a,
I'll go grab
a bar, a server, an area where there are cocktail servers, multiple bars. That provides additional challenges to your traditional restaurant setup. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Just want to get an idea of sort of who's out there today. Any country club people? Okay, good, because that's the worst.
To alcohol, the cause of and solution
Oh,
to
that's probably smart, yeah.
all of life's
You don't want to hear me?
It's true. Right there, gotcha.
Perfect, thank you.
So you guys, anyone who has sold alcohol and sells alcohol is a dram shop, and that's an old word because you hear it in the context of whiskeys and drams of alcohol, and it's hundreds of euros old. And so these rules and the idea of responsible alcohol service has been around since sort of the invention of the delectable spirits by our good brothers. And a dram shop is anyone who serves alcohol. And the body of law and the body of regulations over people that serve alcohol is called dram shop law.
Actually, why don't you do that?
And it addresses the dram shop law addresses an injury caused
I was just
to
gonna grab
someone
my ice, but I have everything.
by a person
I got
whom
most of
you
the stuff
served
up there
alcohol.
already.
So
It's not pre-batch,
if you
so
serve
you're making
alcohol
it,
to a
Yeah.
guest, that person usually cannot turn around and sue you for having gotten them intoxicated.
Midnight
we
Marigold,
do have some
gin,
standard
and
of
ginger beer.
personal responsibility still here in Texas. So if you get yourself drunk and have an accident, you are not a good plaintiff.
It's 20
against
pounds
the
of ice
restaurant
plus
or
all
bar.
the cooler.
But if you get yourself
Okay, if
drunk
you really
and
want
drive
to.
into a minivan, that family that you kill is a good plaintiff, and that is a dram shop plaintiff that can sue the restaurant. And so what we're talking about in terms of
Yeah, on the top,
responsible
that'd be great.
alcohol service is how to take the responsibility of serving what is essentially a controlled substance to our guests and sort of balancing that with our desire to make profit. The other thing that the dram shop law regulates is service to minors, which is always and forever a no-no. And we'll talk about, it's against the law and it's bad. There is another reason
Yeah,
it is a no-no. We'll talk
ginger's
about it in a minute.
powerful. Flower power, let's call it that.
So dram shop law is what applies to you
I like
guys
it.
as you serve alcohol. Now, that does not mean that you cannot be sued by a plaintiff
So
that
you're
got
gonna-
intoxicated in your restaurant. It just means
Okay,
that
so do I start talking?
typically they're not good plaintiffs. So I will
who
give you an
talks
example
when-
from a
when-
couple of years
okay.
ago in Dallas. There was a bar
you
that was a
preserved-
very
Okay,
high
I'm
volume
like,
bar.
I'm moderating, but I'm like,
Over the
So
course
you're
of 4
introducing also
hours,
another
they served
person
2
who's gonna
gentlemen
talk
the
more.
equivalent of 43
We're going to
drinks.
be in between, but I sense that you need a little more time. So,
Those, it was in Plano, Texas. One of those guys took the other guy's keys. He drove the wrong
So
way
he's
on the
talking
Dallas
now,
North
and then I-
Tollway. He had an
I'll say,
18-wheeler.
hey, you know,
He
for
was
our last
killed.
cocktail, I
His
hope
family
you
sued the
can
bar
narrow
for
down
gross
our
negligence and everything they could possibly
Now that you're
sue the
empowered
bar
with
for.
all this information, have a flower
That
power cocktail.
technically
Okay.
is not a
I'm gonna
good
get-
dram shop
I'm gonna
plan.
get started making them.
start making
It did not go to trial. I promise you that. It was dismissed about 2 months later because there was an insurance settlement. There just was. It was horrible publicity. It hit the Dallas Morning News and all the media sites, and it looks terrible. So once something like that happens to your bar, it's not really great to say, yes, but he's not a good dram shop plaintiff. What you should say is, I'm sorry. Here's money. Please don't ruin us. And that's what happened. So technically, not a good dram shop plaintiff, still a plaintiff, didn't go to trial, lots of money, horrible situation, somebody died. That's what we're trying to avoid by responsibly serving alcohol.
Steal this for a nice scoop.
And look, nobody comes to this show and nobody walks around saying, we're just going to ply our guests with alcohol till they're blackout drunk and then make sure that we've made profit off of them. That's not why we're in this business. That's not why you're at the show. But I'm going to talk to you about how to do business better and responsibly do it and still make money.
Is this helpful?
So the standard is you can't serve an alcoholic beverage to someone who is obviously intoxicated. No, that's perfectly clear, right? Am I obviously intoxicated? I bet you don't know.
Maybe.
Will I be tonight? I don't know. When I get back to Dallas, I mean, like not on the road. That'd be ridiculous. Don't look at me like that. I see you judging me. Judgy. That's very judgy of you. This is what obviously intoxicated is.
I'm in no condition to drive. Wait! I should have listened to myself. I'm drunk. Okay. Remember the rules for drinking and driving. Drive slow, not too slow. Drink some cola to keep yourself alert.
It's funny because it's true and sad, but mostly true. But that's what happens. So the standard of obviously intoxicated is be careful. Listen to the words, right? You can't serve alcohol to someone who is obviously intoxicated. That does not mean you can't serve alcohol to someone who
Aside
then
from the
becomes
ice scoop, I
intoxicated.
came prepared.
So there is a point at which someone can become intoxicated from a drink that you serve them, but it is after that point where you are not allowed to serve them alcohol. Now, if you think that's purely subjective, it is. It should scare the pants off of you, right? So how do you do that? You have to know how to properly and responsibly serve alcohol, but that's the standard. Here are some helpful guidelines. I think pretty much anyone who's ever been into a restaurant, or especially is in the industry, kind of knows what this is. It's also the thing they teach you when you get a TABC certification that will allow you to serve alcohol, and that's basically the entire course, is teaching you how not to serve to an underage person and how to recognize the signs of obvious intoxication. Oh, which one do you like the most?
Slow or no response to questions.
Would you like another one? If someone is asleep in your bar, they are probably intoxicated. That's just a good rule of thumb. And I don't know if sleeping is on there, but sleeping or nodding off, that's always a good sign. But look, the whole premise, the whole thesis of my talk is that getting somebody as an employee with a TABC certification is not enough. It is the absolute bare minimum, right? That's a 2-year certification. It takes, what does it take? Half hour? It's $25, $15. We have a discount. I mean, I don't remember what it costs because we have discounted rates through TRA, CTRA about applicable discounts through SurfSafe and whatnot, which also benefit the TRA Educational Foundation. So, let's make that happen. But it's the absolute bare minimum of alcoholic responsibility. And so when you hire someone and they have that certification and or you help them get it, it's just not enough. And this should be, you can train on this. You can hand this out. We are going to talk about training. Alicia talked about training. I'm talking about training. That is the number one way to responsibly do this. Ever. How do you know if they're a minor? Do you use a book that has pictures of driver's licenses from across the United States and DC? And you use maybe sort of a black light pen or something? Do you use a swiper, like a WeScan ID thing? How do you do it? Do you just eyeball it? There are best practices, and I submit to you that fake IDs are really, really, really good now. And if you're not swiping IDs to check if they're fake, then you're not doing it right. And here's the other reason. The numbers coming out of some of these cases are not worth laughing at. They are astronomical. The big one, the $46 million one, occurred where a minor was given alcohol by a restaurant manager and then taken to a hotel and sexually assaulted.
Oh.
And it was a horrific case. It put a bunch of people into bankruptcy. A lot of people in the restaurant lost their jobs. The hotel got sued, but it got out of it. But it ruined people's lives. And these cases ruin people's lives. And that's why the dollar amounts can be so big. And I bet nobody in here in this audience has insurance that big. And here's the thing. If you serve a minor, it is an illegal act, and an illegal act may violate your insurance and void your coverage. So if you have a dram shop issue and you serve a minor, you might not have insurance for it, even though you're paying all that money for booze insurance and your umbrella and everything else. And so that's not two pieces of the puzzle that ever really come together, because you think, I have booze insurance. If I sell to a minor, I'll be okay. But it's illegal. And insurance companies' number one answer is always, no, you don't have coverage. And then they'll find out why. And if you give them a reason to tell you no, you won't have it. And so it doesn't matter whether it's $4 million or $1. If you don't have insurance for it, it's going to really, really hurt the company. Finally, something good. Asterisk. Sort of. Has anyone ever heard of our safe harbor from Dram Shop? Got a couple of hands, some nods. So the safe harbor, we are the only state that has a safe harbor in our Dram Shop law, which is, it's good that it's there, but if you Google Dram Shop Safe Harbor, Texas, what you're going to find is websites from flesh-eating plaintiffs' lawyers that say, we've never had the safe harbor successfully argued against us in hundreds of plaintiffs' cases. Which is so scary, it almost makes it look impossible, but it's not. I mean, the safe harbor is a real thing. And that means I have a safe harbor from Dram Shop suit and from losing my permit to TABC if I do these things. Everyone who touches booze in any way in your organization, whether that's bartender, barback, server, if a host runs drinks because you're shorthanded, that person needs one. Anyone who touches alcohol has a certification from TABC. That is a mandatory requirement. And look, if you're not requiring that, you really, really should consider doing it. If you're hiring people that do not have it and they say they are going to go get it and then you don't double check, it's on you. You should have a process or a policy where you will not hire them if they don't have it. If you pay for it and they do it, great. If they already have it from somewhere else, great. They have to have it. And we'll talk about why in a minute. Okay. They have to have gotten a certificate. You have to require it in order to meet the safe harbor, and then they have to have done it. And this isn't subjective at all, right? The employer cannot directly or indirectly encourage the overservice of alcohol. Now, direct encouragement is easy. Direct encouragement is serve that person more booze. Indirect encouragement is not enforcing your rules, not training on your policies, or if you have incentives, whoever sells the most bottles of wine tonight gets a gift card to Amazon for Prime Day. That is indirect encouragement, and the TABC and plaintiffs' lawyers will tear you limb from limb if you do it. So if you put a bounty on selling alcohol, it is not technically against the law, but you will lose your safe harbor, and you won't be able to exercise your dram shop defense. So if you want to have a bounty on chicken fried steak, kill it. The person who sells the most chicken fried steak this weekend gets a free Buick. But if you put it on booze, you're in trouble. The other thing is, and some of these cases are weird, is if you have one of those sort of breathalyzer, if you've decided to provide for your guests one of those breathalyzer machines where you have a little straw and you put in a quarter and you can blow and see if you're intoxicated. Well, sometimes it turns into a game to see how high you can get the number. So I would encourage you not to do that. If you have beer pong tables in your bar, that is also an indirect encouragement because you're encouraging people to play games that will cause them to overconsume. So no, we don't get to have any fun, but we're going to be responsible about it. Has anybody seen any other sort of wonky indirect encouragement in their sort of illustrious careers of bar hopping? Jeffrey, what have you seen? I know you've been in like every bar in the state this weekend. Oh yeah, no 2-for-1s. Oh, that's super, super illegal. Bottomless mimosas are 100% illegal. Okay, there's 2 reasons. One, it encourages people to overconsume, but 2, if you have to have a way to ring up the drink with a button. And so bottomless mimosas are illegal. TABC will eventually find out about it. If you can have 50-cent mimosas as long as you're hitting a button on the cash register. So we had a client a few years ago, and they went through cases and cases of the cheap sparkling wine every weekend. And then when they had their comptroller mixed beverage audit, they said, "We're assuming that you sold all of the sparkling wine at retail, and so you owe us $700,000 in unpaid taxes." Surprise! We were just trying to do brunch, and everybody else does it. Like, David, everybody does bottomless mimosas. I know, it's illegal. But, so you have to remember, that the other thing Jeffrey said was 2-for-1s, bottomless mimosas. 2-for-1, illegal. 50% off, not illegal. It's just math. It's the same, but you don't want to encourage somebody to walk out with 2 drinks when they've had to pay for it. So if you have any questions about that, let me know, because there's a big FAQ on the TABC's website about marketing practices and how you advertise that kind of thing, and what you can and can't have. It's I hate being on social media on the weekend, because I see it all the time. Then I'll take a screenshot and I'll text it to the client and I'll be like, can't say this, can't say this, can't say this. So, if you have indirect encouragement and you don't know it, the plaintiff's lawyers will find it out when they ask about how you run your business. They're going to depose. I'm going really long, but how are we doing? I think we're doing okay on time. I feel like we're doing okay. They're going to depose your employees and say, "What's it like around here? Do you guys ever cut anybody off?" And they're going to be like, "Heck no, we don't cut people off. We just feed them booze until they leave."
Schlepping that bar around, bent over in the elevator and
what
ripped
will they find on
a
your
hole
social
in the
media?
seam of my pants, so
The thing that
I
makes
don't want to really step out from behind the
the hair on the back of my neck stand up on Sunday morning is seeing an Instagram post that says "drunch."
It's just a rinse
'Cause
bucket
drunch-
or a dump bucket or whatever.
I'm no linguist, but I'm pretty sure it means drunk and brunch, right? I don't think it's hit Webster's yet, but it's on the way. Drunch is you saying, "Come to brunch and get drunk here," which lives for infinity on social media, right? If you say, "Come day drink at this place," day drinking in and of itself is not illegal. But if you take a history of social media posts that say things like "drunch, Sunday fun day, day drinking, it's going to suggest to a jury that you are an indirect encourager of violating your own policies. And where are your policies? They're probably written down in your handbook. But if you don't follow them, then having a policy is worse than not having a policy, because if you write down a policy, whether it's about employment law or whatever, if you write it down, you tell the world, "I think this is important enough to have a policy about." And if you don't enforce it, and then they say, "How many times have you had booze training?" They're going to say 0 times. And they're going to say, "Well, you only care about making money, right? Because you wrote a policy down, but you really don't enforce it because you don't care about people, you only care about profits," and then you lose the case. So this also makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck. The server specifically said, "Yes, I violated the ABC code, the alcoholic beverage code." That's pretty much nail 1 in your coffin. She also said, "No, I wasn't giving the tools or training to serve alcohol responsibly." And everybody was wasted all the time. Right? On any given night, from Thursday through Sunday, half the bar's patrons are drunk. That's not good. And that's just an employee getting questioned. And by the way, if TABC shows up, they wear body cams. They are recording whatever your people say. Always. Always. Pretty much since that whole Rainbow Lounge debacle, they are wearing body cams and they are recording everything. And so even when they're being nice and just asking for paperwork, and so here's the slimy trick that they do. Is General Nettles still here? Maybe they don't do it anymore. They used to do it before he came on board. Let's be careful about this. Here's the slimy trick I've witnessed in the past. TABC will come in and they'll interview somebody and they'll say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how intoxicated was the guest? And your employee, being a cooperative sort of witness, will say, I don't know, a 1. But they don't use the right vocabulary word. The TABC person said, were they intoxicated on 1 to 10? So when your employee says they were a 2, they're saying, yes, they were intoxicated, not, I don't think they were impaired. Or if you get asked a question and you're just a regular person, you think, well, 1, they weren't intoxicated. But they'll turn it around and use it against you to say, they testified under oath that that person was intoxicated, but it was only at a 1. I've seen it. It sucks. So, how do we fix it? Make everybody be TABC certified. Super duper, super important. So easy. Please do it if you're not doing it. Keep the proof in their personnel files, right, that they have actually done it. You keep a copy. And if you're relying on your own memory to decide when your 30 employees' TABC certifications expire, that's not good. If you have to have some sort of internal calendar, or there are companies like Hot Schedules and Digital Redbook and things like that that will track your TABC certification and lots of other kind of paperwork issues for your employees. So if you have that database capability, it needs to put a month or 2 reminder out there, hey Jerry, your TABC certification's about to expire. Okay, you're not working a shift if it expires. So get it done. Bring me the card. Bring me the renewal. You have to know when it's coming due, right? And here's the big one. That that safe harbor requires that you have a written alcohol policy. So you put it in your handbook. You put a signature block at the bottom of it. And it isn't hard. If you guys want it, I will email you a copy of like the one that we use. We just put it in everybody's handbook at the back. Where you're signing all that other junk, you train on that one, and you go through it with them. And the other thing is, once they sign it and it's in their employee file, you train on it again, right? But if they break your rules, if your employees break your rules, you have to discipline them. Because not disciplining the people that break your alcohol policy is indirect encouragement of a violation, right? So you all have staff meetings. You all have pre-shift meetings. We, at my office, are huge fans of training. I don't care what you're training on. You should be training on foodborne illness and allergies, how to deal with that, what your policies are. You should be training on responsible alcohol service. You should be training on how do I make a sexual harassment complaint, who do I talk to, what is the phone number that I call, like how do I do this? I think you should train on each one of those things at least quarterly because it helps with employee turnover. It helps you build a paper trail of the fact that you have been responsibly training on this. So if you do have to give a deposition someday, you can say, yeah, we have this policy, we train on it once a quarter, we write it down in the manager's log, we write it down on this checklist, this is how we do it. So these last couple are important. You have to, your employees must know that they are empowered to cut anyone off.
They're dying on the bar,
If they
baby.
cut
Pass
someone
them
off,
out.
you're not going to have a manager come by and say, oh, no, Mr. Jones, no, I know you're a good customer, you're a good customer. You're fine. Like, she doesn't know what she was talking about. Like, don't ever let that happen. If somebody, they all have to be empowered to cut a guest off at any time. And then, of course, you'll have policies about cabs and Ubers and whatever and how to get people home. Don't drive them home yourself. Don't do that. I've had people do that, like, oh, well, we took Mr. Jones home. Don't take Mr. Jones home because you might become a cab. If you have a crash, then Mr. Jones gets hurt. Like, don't do that. But find Mr. Jones a cab. And then be careful about social media.
Ta-da!
So this is a little off topic, but one of the things that we have going on right now in the industry, and I'll be happy to field questions later. I know this was a big brain dump on you guys, but it's very important and it's very near and dear to my heart. So there are a couple of things going on in the industry that I want you to be aware of. If you have any employees in the Dallas or San Antonio cities, there are pending paid sick leave ordinances that are about to go live. Dallas's goes into effect August 1st.
She's gonna tell us
It is not being enforced until April 1st, 2020. But it is a current city ordinance. If you have employees, every time they work 30 hours, they will accrue 1 hour of paid sick leave. The amount that they can accrue is based on how many employees you have. Anyone over 5 employees is subject to that ordinance. It sucks. And people don't know how to deal with it because it's very unclear how it was written. We don't know how does it apply to people that already give paid time off? How does it apply if you have 1 unit here and 1 unit here? What if you make deliveries into Dallas but your office isn't there? We don't really know the answers to these questions, but that is something that you need to be aware of if you do business in Dallas or San Antonio. The one that was in Austin has been stayed by court. The Circuit Court of Appeals has got it's on appeal up to the Texas Supreme Court, but that's not binding on Dallas and San Antonio. So we suspect, John Gessner has said there may be a San Antonio and Dallas plaintiff coming to try and stay those ordinances, but we don't know that it's going to happen before August 1st. So keep your eyes on it if that affects you in your market. And now I see a tray.
Yes.
Hi guys. Thanks for having me, by the way. I have a distillery in Bastrop, Texas. We make a line of liqueurs. This is the latest of our liqueurs line. It's a bitter cordial, Midnight Marigold. So marigold, turmeric, ginger. It's also got caraway, if you get that like rye bread kind of flavor in there. Caraway, coriander, Kina, and wormwood. We are also the first absinthe distillery in the state of Texas, so wormwood is close to our hearts. It's one of the 2 bitter herbs in that mix, and I've put the marigold with some gin and ginger ale for you. We're calling it Flower Power. So now that you've been empowered with all the booze
flower
knowledge.
and power, yes.
Like our line of floral liqueurs is it's all like natural ingredients and natural flavors. That color that you're seeing is from the turmeric. There's even a bit of the wormwood kind of tinge to it. Kind of gives it a little woody, earthy. But you're also going to have the sweetness from the ginger ale with a little bit of bite. And then you know it's a cocktail. You can go low ABV, which is definitely a responsible way to serve your guests, and you could omit the gin. But I'm a big gin fan, so and this is one of those simple recipes where you just build it in a glass. You maybe give it a stir. So it's like 1 part marigold, 2 parts gin. And then you splash a little ginger ale on top to give it the fizz and the kick. So
Love it. Love an easy cocktail.
Yes.
Faster from hand to mouth. Right? Like that's kind of the thing. It's like all your bartenders are busy. Like let's make it happen. Thank you so much, Jessica.
You're so welcome.
Sorry that Lang from Zing Zang isn't here, but I will pass on your regards. Thank you again.
I have many more.
Oh yes, there's more. There's more. Just raise your hand and I'll bring them. But I really wanted to say thank you so much to our attorneys. Alicia, Jacob, David. I was like, oh, it's going to be a snooze fest. But it was super fun. You guys are so cool, and thank you so much. Big round of applause for them, please. Yes. Great taste in TV shows and movies, I think we can agree. And if y'all want another shot, come on up. Don't forget that there's still the bidding for the mural. There's the live action mural that's been happening over here, along with the photos for your restaurant. And if you have any questions for them or for me, I bought this dress at Ross, if you were wondering. Then I am up here too. But thanks so much again, and we'll see you at TRA 2020.